So yeah, as you can see from the title of the video, it's kind of vintage style fragrances. So we're not talking like proper vintage here, don't get too excited. But it's them ones that have that kind of style of the past. I have tried the odd vintage one, but I don't know them enough to make a video, if that makes sense. So this is what it is really, vintage style fragrances. You know, them ones that give you them vibes of the old days, and isn't something vintage classed nowadays, well always probably, is over 20-year-old. So I'm going to go for more kind of, let's say, classic vintage than, there might be one or two in there, you never know, you know. So yeah, we'll crack on. So first we'll start with probably the most famous one we all know and we can name, and that's of course Chanel No. 5. Now I will have smelled older versions of this, older than the one I own anyway, because of course you would, do you know what I mean? It's been smelled on generation after generation after generation, hasn't it? I wish I could smell the proper, you know, the first version, but it's not very likely that I ever will, is it? So we're going to go for like the one I know the best, and this is probably 2 formulations ago. So we're talking around the late 2000s, 2010s ish, and of course this version that I've got, I tend to find it's pleasantly sweet actually, which is kind of unexpected in it. Now it's got your, we all know Chanel No. 5, it's famous for the kind of aldehydes in it, the kind of soapy but fizzy, bubbly, happy aldehydes that kind of merge with, to me predominantly, this is a ylang ylang fragrance. That's where the brightness comes from, the sunshine kiss, the little bit of sweetness, to me anyway. And the lily of the valley mixes with the aldehydes to give you the sort of more soapy aspect of it. And it's just, it's quintessentially Chanel, isn't it? All of the fragrances have this, not the same, they don't smell the same, but this kind of similar vibe that this sort of has in it. And this one is just, it's a delight. But what I will say about Chanel No. 5, because after you read things here and there, I don't think it's ever going to die, because I think it actually smells modern enough now that why would it need to go? I think it's suitable for a modern palette. I don't know how to get out of this circle. That anyone could like it. You, me, you know, the elder people, like what you think it was aimed at. It's, I hate doing this, it is female marketed, but it's, anyone could wear this. I don't particularly find it, as people like to say in inverted commas, traditionally feminine. It's just an easy and beautiful wear, isn't it? So that's Chanel No. 5. Next is a kind of wonderful, fantastic vintage classic here, and that's Youth Dew from Estee Lauder. If you watch my fragrance journey 1 Ron on here, I will try and remember to link the video. They've done a whole history of this fragrance, which I didn't really know about. I really know much about Estee Lauder other than now in modern times they completely destroy every fragrance they touch. But anyway, Youth Dew is just one of them that I think we've all smelt it again. It's another one of them kind of ones we all know. So it's touched all of our lives, and it's this, obviously the more modern version. I have got a vintage version of it. Don't know how old, but obviously the bottle I have, which was a gift from Dr. Claire Smith, is a more kind of modern one. Now this is, it's kind of Coca-Cola-esque amberiness, with a lot of clove can do that, can't it? A lot of clove, a big blast of warm spices. There isn't really a dirty growl in there anymore, but you can get enough of it to imagine that there was. And then it's a massive mega patchouli bomb. It's a huge patchouli, like your traditional patchouli as well, underneath it all, but it's all so well put together that it all smells very rounded and very nice. And this one is kind of, is it from the 50s or the 40s, the original? I don't know. But you see your kind of fur coat, you know, your weird bobbed hair, cigarette holders, and hello darling, that kind of era about it. And someone bold and brash and confident and in your face, and it's massive, and it still smells to this day so good. And again, it's not one that I'd say smells particularly dated. Yes, it smells with that vintage style, but it's not a DNA that's ever died, and rightly so. Of course it's not sweet caramel vomit, but it is, oh, fall down this hill. Very well done indeed. That's the hill I just climbed up. It's yeah, it's just a beautiful one. And for some reason, we'll come on to this later because it's quite similar to two others, it makes me think of the 80s. Clearly the 80s kind of revived this style of fragrance and did really well with it, to be fair. So yeah, that's used to from Estee Lauder. Next we're going more contemporary. This is very new. It's not a vintage fragrance, but it's certainly a kind of vintage style, and it's from One Way Bridge, and it's called The Forgotten Highway. Now this one opens very much with a lot of lavender. That kind of is very aromatic, it's very fougere style, but wrapped in that fougere style is all these kind of darker notes, this kind of smoky birch. There's a warm resinousness about it. The lavender slowly goes from being a kind of herby, aromatic, you know, nod to that classic fougere to a kind of sort of modern, we're not talking Mongoland sweet lavender, it's just a bit more pleasant and kind of easygoing than your usual lavenders. And this one to me is kind of, I don't know, it's aimed at people who, she was inspired by people who live in a hospice, and it's that sign of comfort and elegance and class, and the nod to the past and the warmth of these people. It's so beautifully done. So you kind of see like some gentleman of the 1950s or 40s, you know, with his soft bowler hat, his little waistcoat, and he's got a certain kind of swagger about him. He's not posh, you know, he's working class, he's got his kind of string trousers, but he's done well for himself, he works hard, and he's got that kind of elegance and class and innocence and softness of that. I know I'm kind of making that era romanticised, but you know, a kind of what we see and perceive as a classic gentleman. Doesn't matter what background or whatever he's come from, he's got manners, he's got class, he's a decent human being. You know, the things the people went through back in them days, which I'm probably going to go through again very soon thanks to someone, but it's all kind of, you know, distinguished and lovely, and it just has that warmth of remembering these guys and these times. It's a fantastic fragrance, and yes, obviously with that kind of classic fougere style, it's got that kind of nod to it. It's wonderful. The Forgotten Highway from One Way Bridge. Next, obviously, we're going to chuck in another Chanel. There's a few in here, and this one is a little, not the same, but similar-ish to Youth You, but in a kind of Chanel way. It's Chanel Coco, of course. 80s in the bottle, the 80s in a bottle, isn't it? This one again is that cloves. It's got the warm amberiness. This one is perhaps the kind of castoreum, I think it's castoreum and not civet, in the bottom. The kind of little naughty kind of, oh, hello, it is there, and it's big. It's a big, again, a big brash one. It's much, there's another one similar again that's coming up, but this one's much more polished, much more rounded off, much more kind of elegant, where the other one you know was all fur coat, no knickers, kind of, oh, you know, really strong or whatever. This one's perhaps more of a demure kind of person. Again, I think we all will know what I'm talking about when I say this. This is your 80s auntie. You know, she was a little bit kind of cheeky. She's still going out having a good time on the town and stuff. She'd ruffle your hair. but she'd smell of cocoa, and she'd give you a big hug and wrap you up in a cardigan and stuff. It's got that kind of, that's what I think of with this. It's 80s, you know. She had big curly hair, big hoop earrings, leg warmers. She's kind of your cool, outgoing auntie, but with a lot of spirit and spunk and personality and all of that. So yeah, don't need to waffle on. We all know Chanel Coco, kind of clovey, ambery, loveliness, soft resins. I think there's a touch of a Popanax in there, yeah, adding that sweet, smooth base. So yeah, that's Chanel Coco. Next is from 4160 Tuesdays, and it's called Hush Hush. Now this was kind of the brainchild of Smurfy girlie, Claire. This has 2 vintage nods in it. To us, it kind of takes you back to, it opens with this kind of like a locket sweet, which to people who don't know what lockets are, if you like cough sweets, like with it's elemi or something, like the lemon or elemi or something. It's like this smooth, like citrusy outside with this thick, rich honey, which was a kind of to soothe your throat kind of thing. It opens with that, and that is absolutely, ooh, I love it. And then you kind of get this kind of sweeter violetiness coming through. I wouldn't quite go as far as Parma violets, but it's kind of a sweeter, pleasant, irisy feel. And then also in there is like these chocolate cigarettes you used to get back in the day. But it's all of that, and then as it moves on and on and on, it becomes your kind of vintage, kind of flapper girl-esque, you know, irisy. It's probably not iris in it. You know, that irisy, violety kind of feel, powdery, kind of classy. And then you get the bottom of an actual cigarette box. Again, if you've been a smoker or used to smell your mum's or whatever, when the cigarette box is empty, then there's still little bits of tobacco on the bottom. It has this kind of very specific smell, doesn't it, which is gorgeous. Cigs don't taste like that though, do they? So don't smoke, people, it's naughty. It's not naughty, it's one of the few things in this country that's not illegal, but there you go. It's not to be encouraged, but it has all these elements of nostalgia and takes you to these different eras and stuff. You can very much imagine like maybe a little Smurfy girl, you know, she's in this sweet shop chewing up, well, we used to pretend to smoke them, the little eating the papers, which I think we all did, these little chocolate cigarettes. You know, she's just had a locket, she's got a bit of a cough, and she's dreaming of being like a dancer in the 1920s and that. That's kind of what all of this envisages. It's a wonderful scent. So that's Hush Hush from 4160 Tuesdays. Next is a fragrance that I just love. It's one of my favourites of all time, and it's got this kind of similarity to some of these. You'll notice, I think there's 4 or 5 that have a kind of similar vibe to them. So you can tell my kind of spicy, how would you say it, floracy, floral spices. I don't know what I'm talking about. So Fate from Amouage is, it has that nod to your things like Chanel or Opium or whatever, but it's much more, it starts, to me, other people get different things with this, but to me it's very, very floral. Well, to begin with anyway, you get a lot of narcissus, but the narcissus isn't your kind of, you get that kind of bright greenness that narcissus has, but it's surrounded, enveloped by them warm spices. Again, cloves is another, it's a running theme, isn't it? Just kind of warm it up. It's got an edge, it's got more of a kind of noticeable civet in the base. It's a kind of, to me, I don't get a lot of incense in this. There is some in there, and you kind of get that, it's like a burning incense. It's the best way to describe it. And then there's, again, you've got your resinousness in the base, which gives it this warmth and this depth. But this one, again, this one will be, if we're going back to them periods in the 80s, this will be a kind of 80s, well, Amouage, you think of them like some royal family in the Middle East, or, you know, and they've given the future king idiot a perfume, it will be like this kind of the greatest smelling daffodils and flowers ever, all mixed in with this incredible incense. I know that's what gold start off as, but you can see this being that one. This is almost like what maybe Chong was trying to do, that kind of nod to the golden era of Amouage, isn't it, really? It's magnificent, it's beautiful, it's much more floral, like I say, than the others. It's a very easy wear. Obviously, you know I'm a fan of it, so that's Fate from Amouage. Next we have another Chanel, the last Chanel here, but it kind of had to be here, didn't it? Let's be fair, because it's as vintage style as you can get, and that's Misia, which is obviously, well, we all know it, it's your kind of 20s 30s powder room. You know, it's all these kind of powder puffs of makeup and lipstick and iris, violet, rose, lovely leatheriness. So, you know, when she's done her face and that, she's zipped up some leather boots and a little leather corset, and she's going out to dance and that. It's that kind of, you really get that vivid image of it. You know, she's got purple blushed cheeks and that, and big huge red lipstick, and it's got that, but it's got that kind of, this is no kind of, you know, seedy French can club. This is a sophisticated upmarket one, you know, where again all the posh types go, oh, hello, you know, and it just smells of that. It transports you to that, and it's got this kind of gentle elegance about it. Now these violet iris rose ones all through time have kind of maintained the popularity, because not only do they transport you towards that period, for all of us, again, we'll think of our mother, our aunties, our grandma, you know, with all this kind of classy, really good quality, great makeup, probably filled with lead and other toxins from an earlier era. I mean, at least all that stuff's probably better for you than all the plastic in it nowadays. Well, there you go, you know, swings and roundabouts and all that. So yeah, that's Misia. Again, I don't need to go into too much depth. I think we all pretty much know what it is, what it smells like, what it represents. A very kind of iconic vintage style one. So that's Misia from Chanel. And finally, there's more, but I'm just going to zip it up here because I'm tired. It's YSL's Opium. You knew this was going to be in here because of, like I say, this style I love the most about all of these eras. And Opium is again, it's the 80s in a bottle, and it's massive. It's as big as Youth Dew, and it's slightly more brash than Coco. It's very similar to Youth Dew, to be quite fair. Although I think with Opium, with the cloves and all that jazz, you know, the resins and the spices, the little twinkles of some sort of florals in there, it's not, well, the version I've got, again, you get that kind of warmth in the base where there was probably a lot more civet, but there's not now. But it's still warm and spicy and big, and it's got that kind of sweet ambriness about it. What I think makes this one slightly different is there's a kind of, to me anyway, an anisey vibe, just a hint of something like that, which adds like a dark sweetness, a richness running through it. Again, I'm preaching to the choir here, aren't I? We all know Opium, and again, it's the one that sits between, for me, Coco and Used To, in the fact it's got elements of both of them in it, and it's not as modest. Coco is not a quiet fragrance, by the way, but it's not quite as elegant and classy as that. It's not quite as brash and fur coat as Youth Dew. This one is your 80s kind of, not like an auntie, but like, you know, a Cyndi Lauper on TV. You could imagine her rocking this. People say Joan Collins and things like that. It's more of a, almost, it's a fur coat wearing knickers rather than a fur coat and no knickers kind of one, isn't it? I don't really know what I'm talking about here. But anyway, beautiful fragrance, wonderful fragrance. Again, I've got not the newest formulation, but the kind of, probably the same age as my number 5. It's got a lot of elements about it, but obviously it's never going to compare to the for vintage, and mine's an EDP, but delightfully wonderful, nostalgic vintage fragrance is YSL's Opium. So yes, I've just filmed a whole section there. This is, I don't know when this one's going to come out or anything like that. It's kind of inspired a bit by Mother's Day, and also as my kind of taste has developed and developed, makes it sound really old saying this, doesn't it? Where you go, well, you know, modern stuff, new stuff, it's just really crap. It were better in our day, you know, love. It was, with music and perfume. Come and argue with me about that. It's nonsense. In the old days, perfumes had real ingredients in them. They were made by perfumers who were artists. They were made to stand out, to change the world, sometimes even to change society. Like, whatever we think of the very dodgy Coco Chanel, this made an impact. This made a statement. This, in a kind of era and a time where women were kind of told to shut up, especially from her background, it was a really big deal. And for other women and everyone to kind of want it, and it's become so iconic. That's what I mean, that fragrances used to change the world. Now, caramel vomit, a ton of cashmere, and because Ambroxan's got too expensive, all smelling the same as everything that's around. What's that? This is the death of civilization. This is the death of humanity. If there's no creativity, no thought, just conforming and being robots like Bezos and Musk and that horrible orange thing would want us to be, then we've lost the essence of what it is to live. Don't know why this has got so deep at the end. I'm going to finish it, nip it in the bud there. So what's your favourite kind of vintage fragrance, or vintage style fragrance? It's not just me, is it? Things, as in the perfume world, societies, you know, is a different thing, were better in the old days, weren't they? They had more to them, more creativity, more interest. In 20 years, you're still going to be wearing Chanel No. 5. You ain't going to be wearing Paco Rabanne Fame, are you? Just face it, that's how it is. But yes, I'm done, finished, right. Thanks folks, bye.